I'm gonna do a welcome to the NONSENSUS. I'm Zachary Winchester, joined at the brain with
Chris Roscoe.
I have a Christopher Roscoe attached neurocommunicatively.
The metaphysical hip.
And we're gonna talk about what's going on. What's going on, man?
Lots of stuff's going on. So the topic I wanted to talk about was based on something that we talked about on Facebook yesterday, which is this idea that there's a split between strategic solutions for complex societal problems, and then there's morality-based ways that you can act when faced with social problems. Basically, what I mean by this is I started noticing this pattern that I think a lot of us started noticing this back in 2016 when Trump was running for president. All these bad things started happening. There became a new tactic that I'd never seen people from quote unquote our side start to really take this much. And we started shouting down people. We started condemning anybody who had even the slightest affiliation with the other side or even had any slight criticism of our side. And it was and it was this demonization, and it was this silencing and this shaming and this really intense need to just like push out any dissent whatsoever. And the distinction in this comes from an emotional and from a moral perspective. That makes perfect sense why somebody would do that. But from a strategic perspective, that causes a lot of extra problems because of the way psychological polarity works. If this person has a bunch of ideas and they think that this set of ideas is what's required to keep the world safe and sane and provide a future for them and their family, and they're really connected to these ideas, and you see those ideas as a threat to your own safety and the future of our country and all sort of stuff, and you start shouting them down, they will see you as a threat. They will see you as something to be in conflict with, and they will have to get stronger and stronger and stronger in order to fight back against what you're doing to them. And so they're going to silence you, but then you're going to want to silence them. And essentially you have this giant clusterfuck of tensions going back and forth until you get what we have now, which is, rioting and stuff all over the country, which is now turning into armed conflicts. So the conversation that we wanted to talk to today is about the distinction between moral outrage as a tactic, which can make things exponentially worse, versus if you don't want to go that route, what are actually the practical ways to potentially create a better future for us?
Wow. Well, so one thing I got to say, I have newly put a piece of media into my brain, which is The Great Hack, documentary on Netflix about Cambridge Analytica. And
oh yeah, you sent me that, but I haven't watched it yet.
It is, we all knew this was happening, but that one, there's nothing like a documentary with spooky music and moments from reality with the spooky music to
good editing.
Really show you gosh, man.
Documentaries are fun.
I don't know how much of it is seeded. I don't know how much of it is bad actors. And I really think that some of my kind-hearted, well-intentioned, intelligent friends have shared things that were generated by bad actors precisely for the purpose of just making things shitty in America. And that and even who it is, just knowing that is a factor and that it's
Can you say more about this? Because I haven't watched it yet, and I'm sure most people watching haven't, so I'm not really sure what you're talking about.
I'm talking about the infographics and memes that serve one purpose: more division.
Mm-hmm.
Turn up the just turn up the conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is brought to it's just dunking on the other. But some of them are they're not even a dunk on ooh, got you, sick burn.
It's Ben Shapiro's whole career.
Yeah, well, okay, I'm not going to go on that tangent. I just when there's something that is all that it does is take these two folks these two two sides, these two perspectives that are really having a problem seeing how the other is not pure evil, and just worsen that. Which me and you we were talking last week. You said something that has been like reverberating in my consciousness since, which is, you said, like, I don't think that it's gonna be empathy and the goodness in us that is gonna make us do the right thing that we need to do. It's gonna be practicality. It's gonna be like, do you want your house on fire? Do you want your family to be unsafe? Like, if you're choosing no, then we're gonna need to de-escalate. Because we're not de-escalating because it's the right thing to do. We're not de-escalating because we know that there are innocents and children that will be in the crossfire of whatever sort of havoc we stir up if we keep leaning into this shit. And I'm a big time optimist. But I think you're right. I think that it's going to come down to being faced with the reality of where that road leads. And the Kenosha Kyle Rittenhouse, is it that moment is so indicative of where there is a wellspring of that ready to spring.
And it's been boiling up until this point for a while. So this is just,
I don't want it. I don't think anyone wants what it will actually generate.
I don't think so either. I don't think so. I think a lot of people aren't necessarily, because that's the interesting thing about Americans is we think we have it bad, but we are so sheltered. We don't really have any concept of what having it bad is really like. If you look at pictures of people that actually live in war zones, it's like, wow, like pictures in Yemen of like this dude like giving his kids a bath in this this house that got blown apart, and so there's like no roof and there's no walls, but there's just like a fucking bathtub, and this guy like washing his kids in that. And it's like, that's what having it bad looks like. Like, if we were to get our internet turned off, we would have a bad day. We have no idea how bad it can get if we don't stop this. I
was in a person's living room the other day while there was one of the Vice episodes from Aleppo on the TV, as he was complaining about his day. And you're allowed to complain about your day in your own house. Sure. But it was an interesting juxtaposition of like looking over like real problems, imaginary problems, and then I'm thinking about where we are right now and how it's just a little flicker of what is possible. And I just really hope we don't go there. And so I know that
we're already there. There's nowhere for us to not go.
Well, it's like to what scale and to what level? I mean, I want to be realistic. I don't want to be a further fanner of the fears but there's a real train there's a real collision course that I do see that I don't know how to pump the brakes on.
And that's why I think it's important to talk about these practical solutions, because I think there's more people in the middle that don't want things to go bad than there are goofballs on the fringes that are happy to make things go bad. Mm-hmm. I think the goofballs are actually in the minority.
Yeah, no, I do. And you said that like we were banking for so long that it would just be like the right-wing wackos that would, if there was going to be any like armed unrest in the streets, and now it's there's people that are mm-hmm. shaking a fist at that level.
And boy, are they picking a fight with the wrong people. I was having a discussion about this the other day. It's like, this is not a conflict we can even win. We don't want it. But the reason I said that there's more people in the middle is because, to me, that's a sliver of hope. That means the more we can engage in the really important discussions in a way that's actually helpful, then we can start to see through some of the division, because I've studied a little bit what actually helps, because when all this racism stuff, like everybody's talking about racism back in 2016 and like talking about how everybody, like how racist everybody is, I was like, well, let me look into this, like what actually stops a person from being racist. So I looked into Daryl Davis, looked into a lot of neo-Nazis and people like that had been converted. And I was like, okay, so what is it that actually gets these people to change their minds? To the degree that they do exist and the degree that they do change their minds, how does this happen? And it was really kind of, it's not necessarily shocking when you look at it from a psychological perspective, but it's not really what we think. We would never think of this. And the thing that I heard over and over and over again was it's dissonance. It's when the person projects on you that you are this evil, terrible thing that wants to hurt them, and you show up as something other than that. That's what gets people to think. It's like, you're a stupid libtard who's going to like destroy the world, and I hate you all so much, and blah, blah, blah. You show up with love and compassion, and suddenly they start to become aware of the fact that they're creating a phantom, and they're fighting a projection. And this thing that they're mad about doesn't actually exist anywhere other than in their own minds. But the more we act out in exactly the same way that they tell us we will, the more it confirms that we are a problem. The more that it confirms that we are a threat, and more confirms that we are something to be fought against, something we are to be protected against. And so literally, if you want somebody to not hate you, you can't be the stereotype. You have to not be the stereotype. The stereotype is the angry, ridiculous SJW goofball that simply does not know how to listen to anybody else, will call you a racist for disagreeing with you, and all these sorts of things. Or if you're on the other side and you want to de-escalate things, like not being the condescending asshole right-winger who thinks he knows everything and thinks he's smarter than you, or she, or whatever all this. Like, we all have stereotypes. We all have things that we could play into. And if we do play into them, we basically confirm that the person is right for disliking us and wanting to fight against us. But if we don't do those things, then the argument just simply falls apart. And then you can actually start talking about ideas. And then the deeper you go into ideas, you start getting into values. And by the time you get into values, then you've reached the territory of common ground. Because most people generally value the same things if you go deep enough. It's just a matter of how to stand up for those values that we disagree on.
Yeah, and so where my brain has been is pretty personal, often a lot, and I think that's a humbling thing to take in, to see yourself getting survivalist, and to see that it's like, oh yeah, I had big grandiose ideas of how I would help in the grand scheme of things, but really, if it comes down to it, I'm gonna get safe. I'm gonna go where I'm safe, and I'm really committed about that. At this point in my life, I am conflict is always available, and to take it to the point where we're communicating with gestures that I don't even want to have in my arsenal. I'm pretty dead set on that. I've had some good debates over the years with folks saying, like, when would be the time for talking with violence, and I'm pretty sure that it's just not the mode for where we are. We're in this in the information age, and that seems so Black Mirror-y sometimes, and we talk about it as if, but like the world of data mining and being able to manipulate people, and already knowing so much about them and their values from what you like, that I prefer that over just who can send stuff flying through people's flesh better. Like I want us to be in this world of words. I want to keep it in this zone.
And so I think there's phases to that. I think first phase is being like, hey, look, there's a very real thing to avoid. And it's not the thing you think it is. Like if you're a right-wing person, then you're afraid of the communists. And if you're a left-wing person, you're afraid of the fascists. But if you are an American in any capacity, you should be afraid of what happens when they get into a bigger conflict. It's the conflict itself.
Yeah.
That is going to be really hard. And I was having a conversation with a friend about this yesterday. It's probably only going to be really bad in big cities. And it's probably only going to be bad in places that are in cities that are highly democratic. That's probably only going to be where it's really bad. The right-wing places will probably be fine, since like who's going to fight them? Like nobody. They're not going to go out looking for fights. They're not going to go out burning shit down. They're just going to be in their own fucking neighborhood doing whatever they want. And so I think like that has me feeling like I basically got to get out of LA. Like LA is one of the worst places in the world. We're known for rioting. We basically turned it into an art form. And so big cities aren't necessarily the big place to be. But I think we need to educate people on just how bad it can be and exactly what it'll look like and how quickly it can escalate, which is a tough case to make. But I do think it's important to do that. And then to talk about the tactic I've been taking up until this point, because I used to talk about the top level socio-political stuff a lot more than I currently do. And it just made me a lot of enemies. It made people fight a lot and wasn't really productive. But so I started talking about the psychological underpinnings of all this stuff of like, hey, you know how much like you hate that other person? It's actually making you miserable, and it's actually causing all these different problems. And it's like, hey, you know how like you hate people who have this idea? Well, here's actually the merit of that idea and how it fits into your life, and how you pushing it away is actually causing problems in your life. And so I've been kind of like sneakily using psychology to get people to understand why certain ideas and certain behavioral patterns are harming them. And that seems to work. That seems to be the thing that actually gets people to pay attention. Where it's not like if you try and tell them that like, hey, you know, like these are people, you shouldn't hate people because hating people is wrong, like they don't care. And if you say like, hey, you know, like you're going against your own values by doing this, it's like they don't care. They're not actually truly interested in like a strong moral framework. But if you start telling them how it's making them unhappy, if you start telling them how it's causing like measurable problems that they can actually resonate and identify with, then that gives people a little bit more of a like, oh, wow, okay, like, yeah, I can actually directly see the negative impacts this is having on my life, and I'm motivated to change it. And then as a result, they end up having these positive shifts where they're able to converse with other people and deal with other ideas in a healthier way. But I think that's a good thing to start. But my only concern is that it's not enough and it's not going fast enough.
It's that it's not. I mean, we assume that it's not the masses that are thinking that complexly. I mean, my the way I engage with the world, particularly sociopolitically, once I like really let it set in that people don't have ideas, ideas have people, and to always like there are ideas that I allow myself to hate. There are ideas that are my enemy. The ideas are my enemy. But when the idea has a person, it's like that person has a problem. I would like to help them with their problem.
What ideas do you hate? What ideas are your enemy?
Well, one thing that I would like to help folks, I'm able to calm down now. I would like to help folks. You don't have the card to play that a group of people are going to go away or or just be vanquished, you know? Like there's some contemporaries of mine that like seem to think that conservative America is going to vanish or be vanquished. And that making any kind of conversation or compromise with that element is some betrayal of their values or of the only path to a better future. So and it's just, you know, it's like when people say things like, it makes me think of when people say glass parking lot. That's a very extreme example.
I don't know
Turn
what is
it
the glass parking lot.
turn it into a glass parking lot. When people will say that about like the Middle East, like that was something that you would that was
Okay.
something that you would hear like a you know a very unsophisticated redneckish sort say when terrorists and
I just
terror
googled it. That's fucked up. Never heard that.
was the main boogeyman. You would hear like turn into a glass parking lot. It's like that's not a fucking option. That's not, you know, the nuclear option is not an option. And then once you take that off, once you take the destruction and removal of your personified enemies, if you take that off the game board, then it's like, okay, we have to recognize and realize and react and respond that within the game of we're all here, you know, and that these ideas are here, and that they're and that they do have merit.
Yeah, that's the hard thing though, because like the "we're all here" thing, that's such a leap for most people.
Yeah.
That is such a leap. I mean, it's true. It's inherently true. And when you can see the truth of that, it does make you not really want to harm people or even be mean to people, because you can't actually harm anybody without harming yourself. Like it's existentially impossible. But at the same time, it's like what it takes to get somebody to that understanding and that realization is fucking monumental. And so how do we facilitate that in a meaningful way? And the only thing I can come back to is like people are selfish. People are inherently selfish. We have to leverage that selfishness. Because that's what everyone else is doing.
Turn it into what do you want?
Yeah, because that's all everyone else is doing. They're using our own selfishness to serve their needs. But if we could get everybody to use their selfishness to serve the collective, which is what selfishness would do anybody. Anyway, it's in our best interest to act in harmony with the collective. And it has measurable negative impacts to not do that. And so I think it's in our best interest to clearly identify the pros and cons of certain attitudes, certain behaviors, and all sorts of things, and just lay them out for people. That's the only thing I've really found that actually gets people to listen to me about this sort of stuff.
Yeah, so there's a pretty obvious horizon now. And is that enough to start backing away from it? I've been noticing. Okay, so just the the events in Kenosha, and it should be obvious that there will be other filmed police encounters that will elicit a response that is similar, and then there are more who are armed and have a sense that all right, I'm going to police my community because nobody else will, and we'll do a similar thing, and maybe next time more so in groups, and once you got that going, I mean, there is a real part of me that is it's so humbling to see the me that thought that I would always be able to respond nobly. There's part of me that just is like, it goes into popcorn mode, just like get the popcorn, because like what am I gonna do? Say no. Let's all get along. Like, man, that documentary, The Great Hack, like it just really shows it and does the visceral documentary thing with the spooky music. That yeah, when you're doing this and your way of seeing your reality is this, just this Facebook particularly has been, and I wonder if there's a way to disengage from that track And I wonder if yeah, but like even the thing itself, I mean, they're aware of these things. See, when I look at Zuckerberg, I do not see evil or malcontent, just kind of a a, a lack there. This isn't somebody who is
he's a dude way in over his head.
that as well.
I believe he is way over his head and had no way of anticipating that he would be in the position he was in now.
And what is that position? Because is there the option of doing
He's
something?
basically the arbiter of the entire world's information at this point. Between Facebook and Twitter, this is just where we get our info.
What are the options? Like, does he or that company have the option of doing what might be the right thing?
Between Facebook, Twitter, and Google, they own all of our information. They own our access to it. They own our flow to it. They own how much we get presented with which ideas. They decide what's true. They decide what's not true. They decide what's good. They decide what's bad. They decide literally everything about how we obtain, share, and disseminate information. 3 companies.
And there's gestures of them being under audit, but not really. It doesn't seem. But also, yeah, is there the option to pull the plug? Like,
Yeah, there is. From a certain sense, it's like the way I'm starting to look at it, and the way I'm encouraging myself to look at it, encouraging everyone else to look at it, is like, this is where I go to create things. This is not where I go to consume things. I will consume things intentionally, and I will show up to these platforms to create things that I think the platforms need to have on them. I will be the change that I wish to see, but I don't necessarily need to subject myself to what is already there that needs to be changed. Except for Instagram. I really like Instagram because you can tailor that easier. It's really pretty, and like it's all like memes and pretty girls and cats, and it's pretty much all it is.
I dig it too. Yeah, it's I'm curious as to where we're going, and it would be great to see. And this is the thing, I'm a really optimistic turtle, and I remember when
it's getting harder to say, isn't it?
when Trump happened, I was like, well, in my observation of how reality goes and everything I've experienced, now it's something of equal or greater goodness of this thing's badness is now owed to reality. And I am yet to see that. But something like one of these platforms being like, hey, we see what this is doing to people, and we are going to radically change, or maybe even just dissolve the
I think to a large degree, Jordan Peterson set the precedent for that. And it's up to us to follow up on the path that he carved out.
Which is?
He proved without a shadow of a doubt that one human being can have a massive positive impact on our culture. And can drastically change the way people relate to what's happening.
But need to be willing to like undergo this. Like,
yeah, hated by half the world, but absolutely loved and adored by the other half.
Yeah, it would seem it's just like it seems seethingly heavy to be in that position. I saw one.
Yeah, you gotta have good friends.
It's like on the brink of tears, like most of the time now.
Well, I'm actively trying to be the next person to do this. I'm obviously not nearly as smart or educated or practiced as Jordan Peterson, but with this whole shadow integration framework and the psychological understanding of how to actually create this change on a fundamental level, like I think I got enough to get some good done.
Yeah, and I think the way you do that is you look at who you're talking to when you're talking to them, and you're doing a great job at that. And that's something that I sucked at for years was just way too much forward thinking, way too much once I get there. And then I would hear a lot of people say things to me of like, oh man, if you had a bigger platform, or like, and that would be all these hypotheticals of like, if, when. It's like, that is like what gets you there is being there in the way you're showing up to the next situation you're in, the next conversation that you're in. And you know what first sparked my interest about good old JP was like, wow, this guy's really agonizing about what he's thinking and saying. You know, like,
yeah, very precise in the way that he speaks.
Like, you know, it's just not that simple. You know, like,
like, I know. Could you imagine having as complex a thought process as him, constantly communicating with people that want to boil everything down to the simplest, dumbest point they can possibly make? Like, God, it must be frustrating.
Well, and I think that there could be somebody who is a little bit more patient at when they start doing it, and it's like, instead of being like,
God, you're ideologically possessed. Can't you see it? Can't you feel it? God damn it, you're ensnared.
That there would be someone who's like, because you got to be crafty. I've had moments where I do that one-on-one on ground level, where it's like, no, let us not dehumanize each other. Actually, let's bring this back, and now we're talking again.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but I've never seen anybody do it the way he did. To be able to just calmly disassemble these arguments on their own merits and on their own terms. Like, granted, he lost his temper a fair amount, but it's like, as far as I was concerned, he set the gold standard for, like, people are going to attack you. People are going to try and knock you off course, but you have to stick to the fundamental principles that you intend to convey. You cannot sway from your fundamental principles. I've never seen anybody embody that quite like him before.
Yeah. There was a moment where I kind of suspected him of kind of unwittingly doing the Trump thing, which is like, there was a one of those Vice interviews, and it was about like
women should women have to wear rouge, makeup, and
you should watch the unedited.
Yeah,
you should watch the version of that that isn't edited by.
And I later did, and in that moment I realized, like, damn, they did the thing where they show. I saw the snippets first, and it's like, what are you doing? Why are you taking it that way? Because like, when I mean by saying the Trump thing is like that he does this very knowingly, where it's like, here's a this, here's a this, here's a this, and that stops you from this. This is where the actual cock is going, right the fuck into your fucking soul cervix, like, and just fuck, it's like, to see just blatant tactics of such fucking perverse dishonesty become presidential. Like, that was what I was most worried about when it happened, where it's like, man, little Timmy and Rachel are gonna have to see. It's like, Mom, that's the president, and he's acting precisely the way you say that if I do that, I'm in timeout forever. Like, just fuck, man. And it's like, we're at this place now where that like, I've seen, and I respect very much your being willing to take the amount of flack that happens for even considering saying something that suggests that you're not sure about whether or not we should.
Yeah, did you see my post today?
Trump. Yeah.
Like, what is that? I want to check, actually. How many comments does this motherfucking thing have? 155. And it's like a few hours old. Yeah, people blowing up. But it's interesting. One of the things I'm learning through this is, if you set the container where there's rules and you tell people how they have to engage in order to be able to participate on a thing, they follow the rules.
Well, and particularly if they have to.
So I think, to a large degree, a lot of this is due to the fact that nobody ever sets up ground rules. It's just a fucking free-for-all. But if we had places where you could go and have these important discussions in ways that make sense, where there's a mediator and somebody who's going to make sure that it stays civil and stays productive and stays healthy and stays balanced, then people can go and they can they can learn and they can listen and we can interact with these fucking conversations in a way that actually matters. But the lack of structure and the lack of anybody creating and holding a container like that is like no wonder it's not working. There's no ground rules. Even in a boxing match, there's fucking ground rules.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so back to that. What I meant to say about that is, like, to me, it comes down to, and there might be other things that overshadow this, and that's just their importance and the longevity of the problems, but to have this state that we're in, with, to put it as simply as possible, he's a bad person, you know. And to have someone who is just like immediately registers to everyone, even those who like him, you know, those who love him, like, you know, that there is someone who
I wouldn't think so, man. There's a lot of people that do not think he's a bad person.
Yeah, that's. And
people think he's like chosen by God.
I get the thing. I get the defending the, you know, that America is under siege by its own population, and that we're like, you know, the American experiment and the breakaway that could have led the world to freedom is being snuffed out, and that this is the last bastion of somebody who is just, you know, brazen enough to be able to be like, no, fuck you, we're getting another 100 years. Like,
it seems to me that it's like, it seems to me that both sides are reaching for totalitarian control, and it's basically about who wins. It's like, which kind of dystopian future do you want to live in? Do you want to live in the communist dystopian future? Or do you want to live in the fascist dystopian future?
Is it, you know, and that's back to where we started. It's like, how do we help? You and I seem to understand the idea of, like, you know, and as JP puts it, like, you know, the bird has a left and a right wing sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's like, you know, I've been thinking to myself, like, you know, it looks to me like what would be the best trajectory would be get Trump out. Biden is ineffective, and then after that we get some, ideally for me, like an Andrew Yang, like somebody who's a problem solver who doesn't really actually cleanly register on the old you know, left right spectrum thing, because we're in a new situation. We have I mean, the internet changed everything. We were in a new game, and then I could see down the line, like, wanting to. I could see myself wanting to conserve what we got going, because I just want there to be a game that we are playing that is that is solid, so that I can have a life, so that I can exist within a society, you know.
Seems fair. What else is possible? Communism, fascism. What would integration of both concerns look like? That's a very good question. For me, these ideas were always meant to be integrated, as far as I can tell. Because if you study the political spectrum from a psychological perspective, what you have is different sets of moral concerns. Things like fairness, things like equanimity, and taking care of the little guy, like all the more feminine energetic concerns, that generally goes to the left. But strength, power, boundaries, ability to create and provide for, all those things generally go to the right. And same with different, like, moralistic things, like the right is more sensitive to disgust, which is an element of morality, and the left is more sensitive to, like, unfairness, which is an element of morality. But an integrated human being will both want to be strong and just. They will want to care for other people without sacrificing their autonomy and their ability to strive for greatness on whatever terms they choose to. And so for me, the integrated version of this is like, do we support individuals? Do we support, encourage, and reward individuals for achieving and striving for personal greatness? If so, then for the most part, right-wing concerns are basically taken care of. And do we take care of all the other people that are left by the wayside of those concerns? Like everybody who has, maybe diseases or extending circumstances that make it so that it's a little harder for them to reach for greatness. Like, can we help them get up so that they can achieve their own version of greatness? And to me, that's what the balanced, integrated version of this looks like. And if we're to follow the trajectory that we're on now, from an integrative perspective, which I still think is pretty optimistic, is you have two sides and the tension like gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and they build to a fever pitch, and then you have a psychotic break. And that's essentially what we're leaning towards right now. And after the psychotic break, the person who has had their break is essentially given one of two options. One of the options is, are you going to like acknowledge that this is the result of internal conflict and resolve the conflict and become a healthier, more integrated version of yourself that no longer has this need to flip-flop between extremes? Or do you continue down the path and become a monster? We're not even at that choice point yet, but we're paving the way to where when we do get to that choice point, people will know it. And I see it as my personal responsibility to let us know that when we are there, like I want everybody to know that like we're getting there and there's going to be decisions to be made. And the quicker we can make these decisions, the easier it'll be on everyone. And so for me, it's like healthy America. It just looks like a bunch of healthy individuals that are really honest about like they truly care about.
You gotta get people feeling the neighborliness by, experiencing neighborly interactions. And I so rarely see the things that I see on the social networks sphere and the way we talk about, things are getting so bad. I don't really see that when I go out into the world. I sometimes I'll observe an exchange between people that is, that is really, cartoonishly of the spirit of the moment, whatever's happening in the news cycle. But it's pretty rare. For the most part, I see people tend to regard each other as each other. And
it depends. Unless you walk down the street with a MAGA hat, you might get your ass beat.
I don't do that though. Yeah, what I would really, really like is the de-escalation of getting this character out of the mix, because he's such a particular character, and I've said I've been saying this since he got in there. It's apocalyptic apocalyptic shuffleboard.
This is like apocalyptic chess. Because I think Trump's the only one when it comes to dealing with China, I'd rather have Trump at the helm than Biden. But when it comes to like dealing with the actual problems within America, I'd rather have Biden. But we have threats foreign and domestic.
I don't prefer Trump in any of those ways, and I understand the things about the void that he's filling as only he can, but to have somebody that I don't know how you can look at that and say that is a stable person making decisions.
I don't think he's a stable person
tomorrow. Yeah,
I don't think he's a stable person, but I think he's unstable in the ways that will potentially make China not want to fuck with us. The same way he was unstable in the ways that got North Korea to back down. I think the right kind of instability in the right kind of ways serves certain goods. But at the same time, when it comes to other problems, like the ones that we're dealing with internally, he's worst case scenario. So it's a very big trade-off. Each move has consequences.
Yeah. I mean, I've thought about it intensely, and I would like the sigh of relief for a back to boring. That's what Biden would be to me. It would just be like, okay, let's now there's time for though. I think though there's plenty of us now who have been alarmed enough to realize that it's like if we don't get some rational, well-intentioned adults like really trying to get their hands on the in the control room of society stuff, then somebody fucking else will. And I see those people stepping up to the plate. There's like adults in the room now, but that's what I mean by apocalyptic shuffleboard. It's like it will end up doing us good to have gotten so to alarming places. Like, whoa, is this where the fuck we're going?
Yeah, I want that break. That's the main reason I'm pretty sure I'm voting for Biden. It's just because I think it will give us a collective breath of fresh air.
Just a moment to be like, okay, can we like just the even the false sense of relief?
Because the frustration and the anger that would sweep us should Trump win again, pretty concerning.
I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, I don't have 4 years to feel to be in this. You know,
4 years is already a lot. Another 4 is a tremendous amount. I'm going to read this comment. Do you realize this is a global thing? In the Netherlands, we have more parties to choose from, but since last month, we have a pedophile party again. I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm assuming you have pedophiles running for office, which apparently is a goddamn global thing. How sick can things get? Be happy. Well, but Trump's also a pedo. Like, what about the shit he said about his kid, his own kid? Like, Trump's not a pedo.
Oh God, we're in a fucky place. And yeah,
I know pedophilia. What a weird thing.
But I really, I think that what it is like fucking Joe gets in there and is pathetic, and we know it, and then it's like the swan song of old fucking people deciding things for everyone. I really could see that. You got. I don't know how we tolerate old people making choices for all of us, but we're here now, and we got 2 septuagenarians.
Well, we elect those old people, so we have control, Zach. Even though they get like lifetime terms for some of them. But basically, the thing here for me is there is still a silver lining. I think we're basically fucked on all fronts to a certain degree, but there is a silver lining, and that silver lining is that these psychological chasms and these psychological divides you can cross them. That is possible, and because that's possible, however many people we get learning how to do that will create more people learning how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, so many people have been activated in the sense of it does require things to get noteworthily bad in order to get folks to care. You know, you have that with share an apartment with somebody. I mean, sometimes a grouping of roommates. It's like the apartment only gets thoroughly cleaned once it is realized by all that it is thoroughly fucked and needs to be addressed, or we are in a filthy place.
And just like think about how much stress and pain it takes for an individual to change their lives. Like me, I needed to get beat the fuck down so many times in my life before I was willing to acknowledge that I needed to change. And so it's like, yeah, that's just people. It requires a cataclysm of sorts to get us to open up our eyes. And it looks as though we're heading that way.
Yeah.
The question is, like, can you ride it out to where you're safe? Being people who see beyond the polarity and see beyond the division, I feel completely fine not participating in it. I feel completely fine not going to these places where people are fighting and dying, because That's a psychological program that I feel I've grown beyond. I no longer need to engage in things like that. But instead, I can just wait it out and know that there is something on the other side of it. And the more mental clarity I can maintain and the more integrated I can become, and the more I can help other people become integrated and reclaim their mental health, then we have more agents of sanity in the world. And I'd like to get to the point where we outnumber the agents of chaos.
Yeah, it is strange how much my personal life has never been better.
I know, me too.
As the world is burning down, it's really wild. It almost seems, and sometimes it almost seems like, I want to say like elemental, like that's how it works, you know, or in a spiritual way. I like to listen to Muji sometimes, and he'll say like the storm of mind will come, you know, as you're getting close to letting go. That's when the storm of your mind, the storm of the ego will flare up in such a way where it's like, no, I'm fucking here, and you know who's the enemy. Like that's when all this stuff gets like, it's like the crabs in the bucket. This sees you getting ready to escape. It's like, oh no, fucker.
Plus, there's like just big change happening in the world, and there's lots of emotions running wild in the world, and people who know how to navigate those emotions will use them to make their lives better. But people who don't know how to navigate those emotions will be at the effect of them. So when things like this happen and the whole world goes crazy and the emotions are really high, my life gets better because I know how to leverage those emotions instead of getting swallowed whole by them.
Yeah. It's when I'm like synergizing everything, I have these moments now. I induce it. But where everything, it's not that is perfect, but I mean, I see everything exactly as it is. Like, okay, that is the game board, and I am so excited to play this exact game. It's almost like that's when I'm like when I'm healthy and well rested, which by the way I'm fucking not right now. I had a bender.
Tuesday night bender.
A Tuesday night bender. I do that sometimes, and
that's quarantine.
You know, and I notice that like there's moments where I really seem like a metaphor for America or the whole human species. It's like leading into hedonism and addiction and just sometimes just wantonly like, you know what, I'm gonna get my kicks as the whole shithouse goes up in flames. And then as I'm doing that though, I have like flashes of like the Joker archetype.
Which version? The new one?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but all the I mean, Dark Knight and the new one, like you know, but the idea, chaotic evil like exists in me, and likes and does enjoy being allowed to play safely when it can. I'm pretty.
I use video games for that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I do it in ways that will not result in any injury or myself in a jail cell. It's mostly just humor and words and stuff, but I've got that shit in my DNA for sure. And I know that it is so out there too. Like there's some folks that are
if it's out there, it's in here. That goes for all things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I would, that's the thing that I don't know how to get that to people other than psychedelics. You know, that.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Well, I got there not through psychedelics. I got there through shadow integration.
I mean, just the words and the framework, though.
Yeah, it's like because like when you deal with shadow integration, or the way that I teach it, you're dealing with the internal drama of all these different parts of your personality, and you're essentially trying to get them to get along. And at a certain point, if you pay enough attention, you'll notice that the internal dramas that you have perfectly match the external dramas that you have. And then if you think that through to its logical end, you'll start to realize that they're the same. That every drama that I'm having in here is a drama that is indicative of something outside and vice versa. And there is no space between any of that.
So, and what I find myself constantly reminding myself and saying to people when sometimes people will ask me, what should I do? Which there was a time where I would be like, I'm a nonsense man. Why are you asking me this? But these days I tend to be more like, I'm going to try to give an answer. And it's, play at the level that you have a move, that you right now have a move.
That's good.
So if you right now can do what I kind of accidentally did last night, which is like I had a psychedelic therapy session that went deep as fuck and resulted in what had all of the hallmarks of a full-fledged, like, really significant breakthrough moment of synergizing, like the thing that you and it really, like, it occurred to me right after, it's like, what you just did, Zachary, that's the thing where there's people who think that I'm the person who, like, there's therapists that need to see therapists that only see therapists. And then there's people who you ever heard that? There's
yeah, it's just like Inception.
And then therapists who are particularly like, like, okay, I know that I'm a therapist doing therapy for a therapist, so that I know that they're where their guards are. But I hear a lot of people say that it's like, I'm like, I've always seen myself as like either too skeptical of the other person of the role, or that I'm going to show, but it's really just like that my ego is actually incredibly resilient and like has a plan B and C and Z12. And so it's just someone else like requires psychedelics. Like, I have to be forced to face myself. And I was, and it was so blindsiding. I did not expect to have this moment that I had with like my whole past, and like, which becomes like the past. But it was such like this is what somebody might spend fucking a decade, meeting once a week and really trying to, do the verbal talk therapy thing where you get to the places and try to get back to the room. And I did so and it was this but it's a weird thing to feel like, fuck yeah, I fucking did that. And it really comes down to, and that's why the shadow integration is like, it really, I see it as something that I want to be a big theme of my life and in the world, because it's my barometer is like the experience. Like, my religion is experiential. It's like things need to prove themselves to me because I'll feel it when it's happening. And just how clear it is when it's like, oh, this is it. I have found something that makes me uncomfortable and I am not okay in this area yet. And now, and every part of me wants to disengage from this because this fucking sucks. And it's so rewarding when you do it, though, when you're on the other side, or when you turn the fucking disgusting 12-headed hog beast in the drippy cellar.
That's it's the ultimate mythological victory. That is slaying the dragon. That is rescuing the princess. That is the hero's journey. We are built for that. We are built to overcome adversity. We are built to face it and prove that we are stronger than it. That is what we do as human beings. And to be able to face that within ourselves it's the ultimate validation of our power. It's the ultimate validation of our strength. It's the ultimate validation of our freedom, of our choice, of our ability to decide and our ability to create. Like it's the most life affirming thing you can possibly do, maybe other than have a baby. There's nothing else you could possibly do that's better than that. And that's another thing I really want people to see, is that's the most satisfying thing in the world. Is to
it has some really great selling points, man. It's really easy. It's I don't want to say I don't want to say easy, but it seems to me that, I mean, I'm one of them yourself. Like you have some really good what's it when somebody has you can have some really good testimonies of this, because it is immediate. Like as soon as you integrate, as soon as you synergize, like the thing that was fucking you up for years, it's like immediately boom, now suddenly romantic sexuality is now a buffet of goodness, and like an actual pleasure and joy and intrigue and sincere connection and love, as where it was like this wellspring of pain, like it's immediate. It's like, whoa, all of a sudden, like I've had some experiences of that, and it's really interesting because like now I've only been around my mom and my a friend since I had this really intense catharsis, therapeutic fucking milestone moment, and I'm like really excited and curious to see how I show up tomorrow once I've slept. Fuck. Yeah, like what I do in situations now with whatever it was that was so fucky in me is now something is lifted. You want to read that?
People in our society will never touch psychedelic, shadow integration, or understanding how the mind works. Many people are making decisions from a superstitious mind where they believe their thoughts and beliefs without question. How are we supposed to shape a society collectively when it's filled with people that don't think critically? The beautiful thing about being able to shape society in the way that I'm personally outlining is we just need enough people. And we don't need people to touch psychedelics. We don't need people to touch shadow integration. We don't ever need to use either of those words. All we need to do is appeal to the practical mind of each human being. Without ever talking about psychedelics, without ever talking about oneness, without ever talking about politics or culture or anything whatsoever, you can get a left-wing person to understand a right-wing person more just by teaching them how to set boundaries in their life. And then suddenly certain things will make more sense to them. You can get a right-wing person to understand a left-wing person by teaching them how to have empathy for their relationship partner. And then they will understand how to care for other people better in a way they before. There's fundamental and essential skills that come with unlocking certain parts of our personalities. And when you have that, you can empathize with the other people that have them and understand where they're coming from. So the only thing we really need to turn people onto is making their own lives good. That doesn't interfere with any religion. That doesn't interfere with politics. It doesn't interfere with anything. All we need is to really get people to make their own lives satisfying and fulfilling. And the more people we have doing that, the more people we have encouraging other people to do it and setting a positive example, showing that it's not only possible, but it's fucking dope. And then we have more people inspiring everybody else, and then it causes momentum.
Yeah, that there is a personal benefit. You can dangle the stake of, I mean, and I think sex is an obvious one, and it's also the most it's very tender and also very alluring and sexy, but like for a lot there's so many people, and I have so been one of them. Like I get to go forward as being that story. Like my 20s, it was not okay in that department. Shit was not the fuck okay. And even being with people and situations that were safe was not, because I was still in this fucking loop. And so So to say like do this because you'll get out of the loop, because you'll get out of your nightmare is one thing, but to be able to honestly tell people it's like shit's gonna get fucking awesome for you as soon as you,
and to outline specifically how, and then outline the path to the point where it makes logical sense. Like that, I think, is a skill. And that, I think, is a message that can really have a positive impact on a lot of people, where you never even have to talk about any of the surface level stuff. It just happens as an automatic result.
And on the big societal way that we started with the conversation of, morality versus practicality, it's like, so on the societal level or on the individual level, it's like your fucking life could be amazing. Your tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow could be waking up into a like, whoa, this is my dream. This is my dream. This is our dream. And there are other dreamers, but this is
I am lucid dreaming my own ideal dream.
I have experiences sometimes like that. Like, wow, I couldn't have wrote this better. I've got some plans coming up, and the cast of this movie that my life is becoming is fucking so ideal. And then there's the greater, there's but is that the greater? Yeah, the societal story. So with that, it's like we can get pragmatic, really practical like that. It's like, don't you want to live in a neighborhood where your neighbors are all compounding each other's awesome?
Don't you want to not needlessly suffer?
Yeah. I don't.
So I want to get to some of these, but Vanetta's asking a question that ties directly into this. Is like, we just need enough people. Again, look at what Jordan Peterson did. Jordan Peterson inspired half of a generation of guys to get their fucking lives together. Guys that were constantly being told that they were bad and the cause of all the world's problems, and that they should essentially be ashamed of themselves and do all these different things. Jordan Peterson comes through and he gives a voice to an entire generation of men. Then it's like, no, dude, just get your fucking act together. Like, clean your room, start telling the truth, live a meaningful life in pursuit of things that matter to you. Like, be the best version of yourself, become reliable, become healthy, become what the world needs. One dude came out with a message like that, and because he was able to communicate it the way that he did, he inspired hundreds of thousands of people around the world to do the exact same thing. And all those people had positive implications on everybody else. Unfortunately, Jordan Peterson had a bunch of health problems, so he wasn't able to stay on the scene, but he carved a path and showed us what was possible and essentially passed the torch for everyone else to get into it. His name's Jordan Peterson.
And he comes from a very particular angle too, because like one of the things I don't remember, I think it was before I started hearing him that I had this moment, and it was on psychedelics. I had this moment where I like looked at my driver's license for the first time, and it was after a conversation of like the things about society that are actually like, have you ever thought, like we want to be so rebellious and burn it all down, and like it's very obvious the things that are fucked about society, but like, you ever thought like how fucking amazing it is that like shit, the lights stay on and there's roads and there's like places you can go and they're functional and there's just things that you can kind of almost depend on. And I had a moment like whilst in a psychedelic state where I like saw this and was like, I used to always hate this. And this is like, this is just such a compromise. This is the thing I just fucking have to have, and I have to have it. And I was just like, oh, wow, this is like our collective ongoing effort to figure shit out in a way so that things can be stable, so that you can have more freedom to be delightfully chaotic within a structure that you can kind of depend on.
And it allows you to travel anywhere that you fucking want to.
I mean, it could be so much better in that, but that's what we're doing. And it will only get so much better if we commit to helping it together.
Yeah.
And yeah, and Jordan Peterson was that for me for, I had already had the moments myself with like Christianity, like I'd had a time of like, oh man, I like, was raised with this, and then I had my time of like really rebelling against and hating that, and having a lot of resentment for
Okay.
and then having a time of like, oh wait, well the thing itself isn't bad. In fact, you know what? I kind of want to emulate Jesus. But what was really, I mean, there was, he was very helpful for me in a lot of ways. One of which was really intense to talk about is that it's like, I think there's a lot of us who didn't have a father who was classically fatherly.
I just didn't have a father.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not after age 7.
And yeah, that's a thing. And I will acknowledge that. There are definitely times where it's like, oh man, like that. I feel the void being filled a bit of what that is, of what there is somebody who is who is
and he did that. And I think we need more people like that. But the main thing that I really liked about him, because anybody who knows me knows that like I love him more than most people love him. And the reason for that is because I got dumped by a girlfriend of 4.5 years. I got ridiculed by a bunch of friends. I had a bunch of people turn their backs on me because I look at the world through a psychological lens. And I look at psychological impacts of certain behaviors, and I forecast them, and I look multiple steps ahead, and I can tell where things are going to go. And I lost a lot of friends because of this during the last election. And then Jordan Peterson comes on the scene, and he has a psychological perspective on the world. He sees the world through a psychological lens. And he was able to outline all the things that I was saying with 30 years of professional experience as a professor who'd studied all these things in a level of depth that I didn't even know existed, and gave everybody a new existential foundation. And I want to do that. We need to do that.
I would like to help in distilling it and other things. I'm gonna sneeze, Chris.
Do it. So I just hope you're aware that as long as we keep doing this nonsensus thing, I will be using my efforts to make this blow up into the thing that can potentially do that. So you're along for the ride, whether you want to be or not.
Word. I'm saying next week that we do something. Here's something that occurred to me is that if you know that you don't have to say the enemy or your enemy, but if you know that the bad actors are using certain tactics and they're working and they're getting bad ideas to big places, then those of us who can see the chessboard and have something helpful, like I am a big proponent of theory of enchantment, Chloe Valdary, this framework for how to approach political dialogue of any kind. I think that's a good idea. And I don't like infographics. I don't like I don't think that smart things could be said quickly. But it's like, if there's a bunch of fucking infographics, a bunch of memes going on out there, then it's like, okay, here's a good one then instead. Like you said about like, if Facebook exists, I'm going to be using it for output because it needs to have so anyway, I would like the next week to try the experiment of like, let's, you make a thread that is that's gonna bring all the boys to the yard, and then we share this link in that thread, and I'll interact with that thread, and we'll do that. We'll get a motherfucking conversation going.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, that's how this shit works. Is it's very, very clear that it's like nothing beats controversy. And although I don't like controversy for the sake of controversy, but yeah, it is
okay. Let's do that then. Yeah, because I already have a bunch of questions. Like, I'm honestly like, I know we said we weren't going to talk about it on this specific show, but I'm going to talk about my understanding or my struggle with it. I'm honestly trying to figure out who the fucking right person to vote for is. It's harder than I want to admit for a lot of different reasons. And so the post that I put on there today is genuinely to help me figure it out. Like, I want to know.
I think it's the obvious lesser evil, man. I do think he's the obvious lesser evil because he'll be ineffective. Biden. He'll be. I just.
Yeah, but ineffective at protecting us from China, and ineffective at protecting us from Russia. And China's already making moves on India, and China's making moves on Taiwan, which means China's making moves on America. So it's like we're heading into conflict with China, and we need somebody who can handle that. I don't want somebody ineffective dealing with a potential war with China.
I see whenever I dip my dick into fucking geopolitics, it always occurs to me that it's like they're playing the long game. China particularly, like they've got a fucking 10,000 year plan. Like they're not looking for the nearest spark point. They want to fucking be well positioned and continue to be well positioned.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's definitely moments where I think that there's something severely sinister going on with Russia that has been long seeded. But also, I think that people want to be well positioned and continue to be well positioned. They don't want it to be go time, because that's fucking so risky.
So Vanetta just said something very important. Next week on Wednesday, we can't do the nonsensus because it's my girlfriend's birthday.
Oh, book. Well, yeah, let's do a different day than Wednesday.
Okay. You want to do Friday? I can do Fridays.
Let's do Friday.
Let's do Friday. Cool. There we go, Vanetta. No, we are not doing it on your birthday.
It'd be Thursday too.
Yeah. So
Is
either
Thursday
one.
okay?
Yeah. We'll have to find the right time.
I prefer Thursday.
Okay. Thursday's fine for me. There you go, Vanetta.
We will not doing dialectic podcast. So and I want to do this. I want to in the sake of honesty, for the sake of honesty, for the sake of I want to say honest things all the time. I'm going to when I end this broadcast, I'm going to delete this one from the places where it's on for several reasons. But I'm so into what we're doing. I'll still have it. I'm just not going to have it visible. I want to. Huh?
Why? Doesn't that kind of like defeat the whole purpose?
I want to do like what we're saying about being sneaky, like you have a controversial thread, and then we come on and we are embodying sanity. We kind of started this off, and for the of like in the like. It's funny how it happens. Like I'll feel so secure and resolute in my the game of the world and how I fit into it. And then as soon as I'm, talking about it publicly, it's like, fuck man, shit is on fire. And I don't think that's good to put out there right now. I don't think that more public things of like, fuck, this is real bad.
But we're talking about solutions.
Yeah, we got it.
In this talk, I provided solutions I've been thinking of for 10 years. Do not delete 10 years of my work.
You're very consistent though. You always come to it with the thing. I'm also just like I'm nervous about how clearly insane I look because I didn't sleep last night and I had a fucking man. There's this thing that happens where one of my pupils gets larger than the others.
Yeah.
The others. One of my pupils gets larger than the others. And I'm the fucking Mad Hatter. And and it's like, it seems like fucking possession or something, but it's like this Dr. Jekyll thing that I go into. It's really creepy. And it's consistent.
Well, that's okay. Doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I know.
So fuck everybody else. But don't delete this, because I think I feel like I made some pretty compelling arguments to deal with these fucking problems. So yes. And you can propose solutions. And plus, one of the solutions that we talked about is making people aware of just how on fire shit is. If we delete this, we're undercutting that whole thing.
Shit's gonna escalate before it de-escalates, and that's I'm just being realistic about that. That's So
it's okay, but
it's okay. I'm a nonsense fan.
Fuck your burn. Oh,
Fuck
thank
it,
you
dude.
for that. That makes
We're
me
at Burning Man. Did you know?
that
Did you
makes
know?
my heart happy. Fuck your burn, Michael. Fuck your burn wide open. Thank you for saying that. I have not felt that particular warmth in my heart for a long time. Thank you for that.
Fuck
Zach
your burn.
Actually, did you guys know that Zach and I
Huh?
met at Burning Man? That you and I met at Burning Man.
We did.
It's a very good
We
time.
did. We did because there was a box with items.
Yeah, there was a box of items, and there was that guy with the big like Ricola thing. Like, big horn on a unicycle.
Yeah. The L porn.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. It was that. It was
Which I'll sometimes hear in my head as Al porn, like Weird Al, or like
Alf porn.
Al porn. Like I hear the word become. Become, like Yellow Jacket ejaculate.
Oh, or to become.
Becoming. Becoming.
Do bees shoot out their stinger when they come? Is that how that works?
Juvenile as fuck. Yeah, I do.
And then we die for a little bit afterwards.
That's what I wish. I wish that pregnancy was more difficult. To make it happen, not to have it happen. It's already plenty difficult to have your situation, but like it's so willy-nilly, it just happens on accident. What if in order for male to impregnate female, the male would have to commit that it's okay, I'm gonna have to break my dick off into, like, this is my one dick.
This is the future you want.
Because then you'd have to really make the choice.
I don't want to make that choice.
Then don't have a baby.
But wait, can I have sex though?
Yeah.
What
just
about
don't,
after I have
don't do the mechanism where you fucking dislodge and then pregnancy.
Is there no sex after babies? Because then nobody would have babies.
How about this? The only way, in order for conception to happen, she has to eat 17 avocados and hold a handstand.
I like how we're just making this harder for the woman, as if it's not already hard enough for the woman.
In order for my semen to become fertile, I need to drink 14 fresh loads in order to become. So it's like Daniel and Clarissa are trying to fucking have a baby. It's like, all right, well, have the boys over, because you gotta prep. Like it should be fucking more difficult to fucking just have.
I think you should just have to go to a pilgrimage to some faraway land and get a blessing from a priest. A druid priest. That's
or just a decision. It's just like a button that she's got, like, you just like you press your navel as you're being ejaculated into, and it's like, oh, that's the one.
Take a screenshot.
Because what, like, accidental humans, problematic.
I think if we could go on a Zelda-style quest, defeat the temple with the mazes, beat the final boss, and in the belly of the final boss is the magic gem that we need in order to procreate. Problem solved.
Yeah, it should be difficult. You should have to climb something.
Get on it, Jesus, because we need that. I just spilled coffee on myself.
That was good. No, that's vulnerability. That's what it is. And that's me in this. I'm half in the bag. I started this off like clearly scared and alarmed. I'm a person who needs to sit the fuck down. And I know it. But I have a social night ahead of me. I have places to go right now.
Yeah, I have to get on another call in just a minute. So, Vanetta, that would discourage you from having orgasms 5 times, and I do not want to discourage
I thought about that too. How about, what if simultaneous orgasm was the only way for pregnancy to happen? That would be enough, right? That would be great.
That would discourage you from having simultaneous orgasm, which is fucking incredible.
No, but well, okay. Well, I heard rumors in the night that there are people who have sex where there isn't the mammalian counterpart does not orgasm at all, and then that would be ineffective sex. It would just not. It wouldn't work.
All right, I need to go. I have a call, and we are so far from the point right now.
Then the nonsensus.
It's good to be stupid again, though. I do miss being stupid. We've been serious for the last 2 weeks in a row.
Shit's getting fucking serious, bro.
Super serious. How about simultaneous orgasms on a full moon?
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah, I would rather go to a temple and defeat a boss, if I'm being totally honest.
Simultaneous orgasms on a full moon. All right, this is
on accident. You can't go to a temple and defeat a boss and get a fucking procreation gem on accident.
Coming on the moon.
You're coming on the moon?
I'm coming on
All right, let's end on coming on the moon.